In further research, we have discovered that IT is currently operating with approximately $800,000 per semester based on the current student enrolled paying this $7 fee. This additional $3 would provide IT with approximately $3,000 and $500,000 more to budget with. This comes to us of $1 million worth of funding that was not explained in detail during the meeting proposal sent by Scott Bridges. The Senate has yet to make a decision on this proposal. However, based on the vague explanation of where the current funding is going and where this additional funding would be going, as well as the conversations that are circulating through the undergraduate students, it is clear that there is more information that must be provided before we make decisions on increasing this specific fee. We appreciate any feedback and encourage members of your council to attend our next meeting, which is happening right now and has already happened. So addressing this, I also wanted to we have the company agree on Lockett. He did attend that USG meeting, and he does have a little bit more of a report to add on what was discussed during that meeting. Brianna, if you don't mind, sorry.
No problem, fine. I'm just getting the video. I believe it's live streamed on my Facebook now because everything else I needed way too much permission. So we're live streaming on Facebook live.
What?
Real world, guys. Not fake, live. Okay.
Well, thank you.
So I just left the undergraduate student government meeting and go along with the letter that Diana was referring to. So they just voted. I just got a text as well. Sorry. In relation to the fee proposal, they made some changes. So they passed they drafted a resolution, and in that resolution it says USG would be in support of the fee if 3 things were provided, I believe. Those 3 things were more transparency to figure out what the fees would be used for, as well as a survey sent out to the students to say, hey, to get their input on whether or not it's be beneficial to them. And before I left, I don't know if they added in there, the 3rd thing was a cap, because certain students take more than 12, more than 15 credit hours, and some take more than 18, right? So certain people will be paying more than others. So I think that, I'm not too sure if the 3rd part of what that cap was included into the resolution, but the text says they passed the resolution with that added amendment. And so they made some changes, and also the 2 changes I know of, the cap one, I'm not too sure of.
As our board trustees representative, is this going to be something that is addressed in the December meeting, or was this something that came up in this recent past Friday's meeting?
This will be addressed in the December meeting coming up. Okay.
So by USG voting this down, I know those who came to present to us had mentioned that that the board, was just going to be that they were going to make this decision based on the student interest.
Well, I would love for that to be the thing, right? The board doesn't do a lot with the input of the students, right? So that's why.
Well, they even said that this is something that the board really.
They have the final say so.
Yeah.
And so the board will do that via me.
Okay.
Right. That's why I'm doing these. And so, yeah. So I'm gonna make sure that both student constituent groups are heard.
Sure. So now that I just wanted to bring the conversation back to the floor for further discussion. Now that we do have the feedback from USG, as a reminder, 2 weeks ago we did vote in favor of, and so that also is something that we can discuss as well. So I just want to open up the floor for discussion. Okay. I just wanted to confirm, so are we still in favor of our decision, our continued in favor of?
I have reservations.
Okay, but I think that you had mentioned the abstention and you had voted, or were you here? Did you vote?
I did. I wasn't here.
Or you weren't here? Okay. So the majority of the room still seems like. So I think that at this time, with great yes.
I mean, USG, what they stated, or you can correct me if I'm wrong, what they stated was that they would be in favor of it if more information was given.
If it was amended.
And with this technology fee going on, is it getting implemented next semester, or is this a next year thing?
That was not sure.
They mentioned that it would be next year, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Because they would have to look, because they would have to base that on the fiscal budget of the upcoming academic year. Because and I believe that's what they said, as I recall.
Yeah. I don't see it being unreasonable what they're asking for.
Yeah.
I kind of.
Would
Say
you
I
like
would
to
agree
make
with that.
any sort of motions or anything?
Would it be a motion to?
First, what we'd have to do is we have to rescind our previous vote. And we'd have to recognize that many members who voted last time are not here in the room because of other obligations. But we certainly can seek in favor of USG and also just ask that it be amended, that we consider being in favor. So simply just asking for that similar amendment.
Well, with so many people not being here, would it just be better to leave? Next time, I know that's not very.
That does actually still fall within our timeline. So if that meeting is going to be happening in December, and so our next meeting, I believe, what's that, November 26th or 25th, or that last Tuesday of November coming after Thanksgiving would give us that time to articulate what we need to articulate and to make that vote in time for that December meeting for the board of trustees.
Okay, so can we just?
Oh, maybe it is December 4th. That still would be prior to the board of trustees meeting. Because the board of trustees meeting is at the 15th, 14th? 12th, 13th, yeah. So that would be the week prior to the board of trustees. So it gives us that time, but it's something that we would then, I think, be able to think about now with this new knowledge and come to a greater vote. Because I know purposely that a lot of our concerns people are obligated with another event. Yes.
I just have a question about, our next meeting is not 2 weeks from now, because we're not counting Thanksgiving, so we're pushing it to December 4th.
Yes, that's right. Jordan just confirmed that for me. I apologize.
Yeah. Because the law school has.
That's our first week of finals.
Is it?
So,
I talked to you, I thought that was a little strange as well. If it's a conflict of interest for lots of people since it moves to finals week, I'm sure that's something that we can discuss since we have time, but I would have to bring that up to Clay. Because that was my first assumption, is that would be the end of November, because that would be before we all cry a little bit at night, you know, because of finals.
Okay.
So I can certainly make that suggestion, and we can determine that.
Okay. I still think it's beneficial to table it.
Table it? All right. So we're table this motion, or this, we won't make a motion at this time. We'll table the discussion for our upcoming meeting. I will also note that I will request on behalf of our law school students who are going to be entering finals week that we might look at that for last week of November. Does anybody else have, as I make that request, how does that, for the rest of the people in the room, would the last week of November be better for you than entering December? Because that would pretty much be our last meeting then, and then we could just focus on finals. Does it really matter? Does it really matter? I'm getting this kind of like, So what I'll do is I'll let you know, but since it doesn't affect a lot of us, but it highly affects you, I think that's a reasonable request. So we're looking at that. What might happen is I think that meeting, was that listed for upstairs?
Yeah.
Okay, because that also gives us the flexibility, because that meeting will probably be happening upstairs rather than this room, because a lot of end of semester events happen in this room. Okay, so moving right along. See, it's like I look like I'm playing. What time is it? All right. So also adding into our old business, in our last meeting or in our previous meetings, Clay has mentioned when talking about proposals of adding other executive roles and duties and committee work, and how you as members and representatives can help and serve GPSC. So our previous president, Jonathan Flowers, had caught wind of some of these conversations that were occurring, because he is that one other person that watches the live stream. So when there's it shows like 2 people watching, it's just like our camera and Jonathan Flowers. So Jonathan Flowers was witnessing some of the conversations that were happening, and he has provided a letter to Emily to address and read to all of our representatives. Emily, would you prefer standing here, or can you speak there loudly?
I'll stand.
All right.
And try to project, so I
There's
know
at
it's water
least-
this long.
There's at least 11 people watching that. I'm just saying.
11 people.
Maybe it's.
Because we're Facebook page. It's on your Facebook page.
Whatever.
Note to self,
Just
just
saying.
blast us on Facebook. It's like, hi, I'm on Facebook. I gotta remember that. Watch my language.
Okay, so this is a note from Dr. Flowers that I will be quoting from him directly. Members of the Graduate and Professional Student Council, it seems to me in the past semester since my departure, this body has forgotten any of the lessons that it learned over the past academic year. More specifically, this council has forgotten that any gains, any improvements in graduate education are not granted out of the largest of an oppressive administrative body with no interest in including graduate and professional students in decision making. They are gained through collective struggle and, if necessary, active resistance, dissent against administration and faculty who have no interest in the interests of graduate and professional students. Before I get into the meat of this statement, there are a couple of things that GPSC should be checking up on. First, the Graduate Council approved many of my recommendations for revisions to the academic grievance policy, which is a big win for graduate students. However, there were a great many of my recommendations which were relegated to the Students' Conduct Code, which was supposed to be up for revision last year, but was derailed to be up for review again. Yet the committee for review has yet to be convened and changed. GPSC needs to be on top of this. Second, GPSC needs to follow up on graduate and professional student appointments to college and departmental committees. It is crucial that GPSC reps seek out and fill positions on college and departmental administrative committees, an initiative that GPSC embarked upon last year with the intention of increasing student participation in our own education. It is further crucial that these representatives take the time to deliver a report orally or in writing to the general body so that the body may be kept up to date with administrative activities that affect graduate and professional students. Having said all that, this is where we get into the meat of this statement. The problems of the past academic year did not suddenly vanish with the passing of the late Chancellor Carlo Montalbano. Our graduate programs are still under threat. Graduate education is still an afterthought to everyone except the graduate school, and graduate and professional students are still being prevented from the full participation in institutional planning and decision making that is our right. Nowhere is this obstruction clearer than the recent push by faculty for the approval of the academic reorganization and interim president Dorsey's unwillingness to communicate with students. Where the reorganization is concerned, a resolution of the Faculty Senate Executive Committee was recently presented to the Board of Trustees. The resolution in which quote, the SIUC faculty requests prompt approval of the SIUC reorganization process so that we may continue with our reorganization efforts in a timely fashion, end quote, can be read as providing a carte blanche to, I don't really know how to pronounce that, he told me I forgot. To the administration to engage in a, quote, reorganization process without defining that process. The last time the board approved a plan or process was the financial sustainability plan, which later administrators used as justification for initiating some elements of the reorganization, justifications which were challenged and opposed by faculty in those units. To be clear, in a situation where the institution has no permanent leadership, the Faculty Senate is requesting the approval of a blanket reorganization process on behalf of faculty in units whose reorganization proposals have been reviewed and approved, are anxious to develop and promote programs and initiatives that result from a newly aligned unit that encourage interdisciplinary synergies, end quote. To put the Faculty Senate resolution forces the Faculty Senate resolution forces a reorganization upon all units in favor of some units, thereby contradicting earlier decisions by Faculty Senate to oppose this very course of action where departmental elimination is concerned. For further context, the resolution admits that only 1/3 of the proposed program changes have been approved. This might sound like a significant number, but in the context that another third of the programs have been rejected by faculty and their constituency bodies, and a further third has not yet been considered, this resolution represents one of the most odious overreaches of administrative authority since the struggle over the very timeline of the reorganization. The irony of this point should not be lost on anyone, as GPSC once stood against the administration over this very issue. Here, though, is a place ripe for criticism of the current instance of the council. GPSC must start communicating with its other constituency bodies, particularly if it wishes to avoid being ambushed by resolutions of this nature. To be clear, the only way I was able to lead GPSC through the fight over the reorganization to ensure graduate and professional student voices were heard was through collaboration with the rest of the campus community. Without working with other constituencies, any movement for liberation from this kind of administrative overreach would be doomed to failure, and it is this element of my tenure that the present executive should seek to emulate. This responsibility does not solely fall upon the executive. The representatives must reach out to their faculty, their colleagues, to provide information to the executive for appropriate decision making. That is, GPSC representatives must fulfill the most basic fucking responsibilities of GPSC representatives by interacting with their constituents, with their faculty, and providing the results of this interaction to the executive so that any decision the body makes is truly representative of the whole of the graduate and professional community. This is something that the current representatives have consistently failed at. Let me be crystal fucking clear. When GPSC representatives fail to report to their constituents the actions taken within council meetings, or when they fail to fully comply with requests from the executive to solicit information from their constituents to inform council decisions, or when they fail to even attend meetings, which deprives their constituents of participation in the decision-making process, GPSC members are not taking it upon themselves to do the work to maintain graduate and professional student participation and controlling the conditions of their education. Nowhere is the risk that this failure of the body carries clearer than in President Awesom's attempt to draft a statement regarding the appointment of interim chancellor. To be clear, this is exactly what I might have done had I been in President Awesom's situation. My only critique is that I would have started the process earlier. That aside, the failure of representatives to solicit information from their constituents, and I am more than willing to name names, for the development of the statement dramatically reduces the ability of the executive to concretely demand an interim chancellor that takes seriously graduate student needs. This, again, is a big fucking problem. Given interim Chancellor Dorsey's demonstrated willingness not to include student constituency bodies in the process of appointing a new chancellor, Dorsey has met with the executives of Faculty Senate and Graduate Council, as well as with the presidents of the IEA unions to discuss this matter. He has not, to my knowledge, reached out to the student constituency bodies. This is in keeping with the practices of the university where the appointment of interim administration is concerned. Because these are intended to be interim positions, the administration does not see the necessity in vetting them. In light of the over 40 interim appointments on this campus and the length of time these positions are held, it is in GPSC's interest to demand a review of these candidates prior to the appointment. Let me put this simply. If the Board of Trustees decides upon an internal candidate for the community, I lost my place. If the Board of Trustees decides upon an internal candidate for the interim position, there is no justification for not vetting the individual with the campus community. An external candidate, by contrast, would not want to risk the disclosure of their candidacy, particularly as it would imply having to resign an already held position. This puts the external candidate in an awkward position. However, if the candidate is an internal candidate, as is extremely likely, this logic does not necessarily hold. An internal candidate has no need to hide their candidacy from the campus community, either because they are not leaving the institution, or there exists a redundancy in the position that they will soon vacate and someone else can easily take the position. Moreover, there is no concern with bringing the internal candidate to campus as they are already located here, thereby eliminating the need for travel considerations if the board wants an interim as soon as possible. To this end, GPSC representatives need to do their fucking jobs and comply with President Austin's request for qualities needed in a chancellor. Additionally, GPSC needs to demand a public vetting of the interim chancellor to avoid the administrative and public relations clusterfucks that came with the interim chancellor Colwell. Now, Dorsey has stated that any interim should not desire to be a candidate for the permanent position, so they may not have the fetters that interim chancellor Colwell had. But that is beside the point. GPSC needs to be demanding a public vetting and needs to do it immediately, unless we want SIUC to be yet another graveyard of graduate education. None of these issues can be addressed by GPSC alone, which returns to my recommendation that GPSC executive engage in active collaboration with other constituency groups. Let me be clear, GPSC is the second largest constituency group on campus with the second largest amount of institutional authority, yet it is the most marginalized due to administrative and faculty perceptions of graduate students. To this end, GPSC, if it wants to succeed in making any gains for its constituents, has to do so with other constituency bodies. To be clear, any success I accomplished during my tenure as GPSC president was an end result of mobilizing a coalition and interested stakeholders in practice, and not really as an odious attempt at placating the student body. GPSC as a constituency body needs to reach out to, and if necessary, force other constituencies to recognize the need to work together against administrative initiatives that threaten the very mission of this institution. This is a mandate that the executive must take up, and it must do so immediately. To conclude, I do not write this out of malice. What GPSC and the rest of the institution contends with is too big for me to be malicious. I write this because any gains that GPSC made towards liberation from administrative marginalization and, dare I say, oppression have once again been placed at risk, and in my view, too few members of GPSC are willing to take up the fight to preserve its rights. In short, GPSC must now decide if it wishes to surrender any progress it's made against administrative oppression, or if it's willing to fight for its future. I also have a copy of the Faculty Senate resolution.
Thank you, Emily, and thank you, Jonathan Flowers, who's watching on Facebook, I'm sure, right now. Some of you, how many of you have worked with Jonathan Flowers in the past? Now, that might be fairly, but anybody who's worked with Jonathan Flowers, is that Jonathan Flowers student to eat? Yes. Yeah. So if you've never met Jonathan Flowers, that's how Jonathan Flowers talks. It's very, so I'm sorry for some of you who might find that very abrasive, but he is certainly someone who is he cares very deeply about his campus. He got his undergraduate, master's, and PhD degrees here, and so he's just very passionate. I'd call that passionate language. But moving on now to officer reports, but just wanted to just let you know who Jonathan Flowers is in the world, and that's exactly how Jonathan Flowers talks. So that is to be clear. Sorry, what's that?
We're allowed to like cuss each other out meetings.
It happens. It's certainly not.
I feel like there should be certain codes of conduct. I mean, and I appreciate his passion, and I think he's very well informed, and I appreciate all the service he's done. I've seen him working in the university, but I don't appreciate being spoken to with some of the language that he says.
I did not have an opportunity to review the speech prior to it being spoken.
Yeah.
I personally, I think that our council members, a majority of them are new, and simply I think are trying to find an avenue to do the service, but want to know how. And so I think that it's our responsibility as the executive members and as those who sit on different committees to provide that guidance. And so without that, I mean, I don't expect anything more on our end. Yeah,
so before we shift gears, I will say most of us are new, and I really appreciate you and Clay and Jordan taking the time to explain things to us, because unless we understand what's going on, we cannot participate.
Right.
So thank you for that.
No, I totally agree. Like I said, I would not have addressed that, because that also, I mean, like, if I have to reflect on this, and I know John's watching, but I think that the timeliness of this, even though it was looming, I mean, a sudden death is unexpected. So the timeline of that, you can expect, yes, he had cancer, so you can't expect that might happen, but for us to have dialogue as if he's already dead would have been disrespectful as well, right? So it puts Clay in a very tough position, because that wasn't something that it was suddenly there was a death, and we had to suddenly create conversation. So he did what he could within the timeline to address our council members. And that's how I feel about that. And that is a very tight timeline, because he addressed that on a Tuesday and asked for responses on a Friday. And that is a huge turnaround for those who are very busy students to reach out to all their constituents. Can it be done? Yes. But I know some of you may not feel that you're speaking on behalf of all of your colleagues when you send that type of message. As I transition into Clay's section, he wanted to thank those that were able to, because even though it wasn't necessarily, the volume wasn't there, but those who did were really detailed. And I think that those details will probably reflect very similar what desires from across the board, as far as what we hope for in an interim chancellor. Was there anything else? I didn't want to move on from the topic, but also to be mindful of the time. But yes, I personally feel that in this room that we should have a respect for one another and a certain code of conduct, and I would eat this and say, okay, that's out of order, and try to move this back. Because I think that everybody here is serving their representatives, and they're serving their constituents. And some of our groups might have different interests. If you're STEM, you might have different interests than if you are someone in the arts, right? And so you have to speak on behalf of the group that you're representing, and we understand that. And that's simply what we're doing here. It's not to attack other people, but just to express our needs and to see how those needs collectively work to advance us as a group on this campus as graduate and professional students. Great, yes.
I just have one quick question. If this were to continue, can we just get these concerns via email instead of eating up the amount of time it did? I'm not trying to be rude necessarily, but we all are busy, we have other business, and he's no longer sitting here as a member. So I don't know if this is a common occurrence for people to.
Oh no, it is
appear
not. It is
via
not.
letter,
It is
but-
not a common occurrence. But I think it's. But I think it's just one of those. Out of he's provided a lot of hard work, and I know it's really weird if you don't know him. But he is a very dedicated man that has provided a lot of time to both undergraduate and graduate student interests. So I decided to give him a moment of floor. Because even as someone who's graduated as an alumni, he even works as an alumni to contact provosts and directors and people to help these changes and to look out for our student body, both undergraduate and graduate students, saying, why hasn't President Dorsey met with students? He's met with these other organizations, and he's on the phone, and he makes that happen for us. He is still a voice. So he's an advocate. But yes, I do feel like some of that can occur via email. Yes.
To continue on with that statement with Dr. Dorsey. Dr. Dorsey, Dr. Dorsey should be on campus Friday, November 1st, as a part of my campus conversations that I usually have. So instead of that Tuesday meeting, Dr. Dorsey will be here on that Friday. And I've asked USG and other constituency groups to give me a list of questions that they would like for me to ask.
What was the date again?
Friday, November 1st. Oh my God.
I think you said
November 30th. I'm sorry. Friday, November 30th.
30th. Okay.
Yeah,
So
it's been a long day.
Long day.
Long day.
Yeah, that happened.
Yeah, so
That's
Friday,
November
November 30th at 1 p.m. In the Illinois room.
Okay.
On this campus. So I'm asking for GPSC to send me a list of questions that they would like asked. I think we're only probably going to get them for an hour.
Mm-hmm.
It's that, but doing my job.
All right. All right, so in mind of time, and actually you're still ahead of time, so that works out. So moving on to officer reports. Here's what Clay has emailed me as talking points. And then you all have in front of you a copy, and we're just kind of quickly review this. That you all have, if you didn't have it, you have a copy of what we did present to the Board of Trustees on Friday. And this is built off of the conversation that took place in our meeting, as well as the results of the comments that we received by email. I'll have Jordan address that in a second, and also just address some other things that are happening on campus that Clay may have also this. So, in considering the total points that I will give you, you can see here submitted as written. Anything that is missing will also be sent in an email to follow up from this meeting. So we can also, I will send that as well as the executive board, diversity council, campus-wide assessment, and core curriculum. So that's just going to be, I'm not going to even go over that. That's something that's going to be sent to you via email. But I did want to just kind of note, since he's not here, to speak in the spirit of Clay. The one thing I would emphasize with the interim chancellor appointment, GPSC and students of the university are going to, again, be challenged and face challenges, whether that's as the voice and advocate for students or the students being heard in general. We have to continue to affirm our advocacy for student needs and well-being by staying current and engaged with our colleagues and peers. Look for those opportunities that assist in meeting those needs. Then we need to also continuously keep students' needs and well-being part of our conversations. Speak up. Put your and your peers' experiences, comments, advice, critiques, etc. into the conversation. Any discussion is incomplete without A, the impact on students at a center of its merits, and B, direct comment feedback from students as part of the discussions. Raise a hand, raise a voice, raise the issue, make the ask. It's not out of place, nor is it inappropriate. it's shared governance and professional development. So pretty much what because we talked about that as new members, it could be intimidating, and I appreciate those that dive into conversation, that raise their hands. And that's what he's trying to say, is that this is where the dialogue happens. And that's where he and we can get some of your input to make sure that when we are meeting with constituent heads, when we are meeting with administrators, that we are speaking on your behalf. And so we never want anyone to feel intimidated to raise their hand and to add a comment to any discussion that might be on the agenda for any evenings moving forward. But also, yeah, make sure that you're having these discussions. This is a very interesting time, and that, there is uncertainty. We will be, as Jonathan Flower mentioned, and as I would mention as well, that you're seeing in his report, we obviously, and I'll have Jordan, if you want to address this now, we obviously have an interim chancellor that we had hoped, we'd had meetings. Breon had held a meeting with student representatives asking their own input of what they would want in a chancellor, hoping that we would have an opportunity to meet these individuals, to meet them one-on-one, to understand who they are as people and what their agendas are and what their vision is for this campus. According to the Board of Trustees meeting, that opportunity is not going to happen. They are going to appoint someone without that input, if that makes sense. And that was his decision, and so that's something that they had clearly stated. But the input that we do put in, I think, will help be a guiding post for that interim chancellor regardless. Because at that point, too, you have to save face. If you're going against what the student body wants, that interim chancellor won't have the most successful career. So I still hope for your input. And the decision hasn't been finalized or made yet. So if we do make a ruckus and want our input and want that opportunity to meet the candidate that's already being put forth in discussion, and have the transparency of that, we certainly can push to make that happen still. If that makes sense. So, Jordan, if you're addressing the highlights, and so if anybody wants to add this as we continue discussion, so just a quick overview, we won't linger on that too long.
Okay, you all have a copy of this, so I'm not going to read Clay's actual letter, but some of the points that he made were that we want a chancellor and a president and an interim chancellor who is interested in university leadership that begins to address the high costs of attending SIU. Candidates evaluated on the ideas for and potential within the position, even if they don't have the wealth of previous experience, demonstrated value for diversity, substantial consideration for an internal hire, establish and instill stability, a sense of pride, be able to speak to our problems while simultaneously lifting up their colleagues, support graduate students with a variety of intersectional identities, including but not limited to LGBTQ+, and community, women, people of color, and people of various abilities. Prioritize getting input from those directly impacted, displays cultural sensitivity and multicultural competence and skills necessary to approach working with diverse identities, regardless of whether or not they have worked with specific populations in the past. There are many more on there. That's just a few of them. You should read through them. If you have anything to add, let us know soon.
I will say, though, that although I did not attend, I did have a proxy attend the board trustees meeting for me. And the board is also very divided on some of these issues and some of these things. And so I think that the student input that we can put forward is going to make a big difference in those who are undecided or those who are wavering. Because, I mean, it is a very, from my understanding, it was it was somewhat contentious, and that there is a very large divide, especially with the reorganization, because the IBHE, which is the Illinois Board of Higher Education, they want to see a whole structure approved. And the easy result to them is just saying, we're doing it. We're just going to go with the plan that we had, and this and that, we're just going to move forward. So that the IBHE can be appeased. But easily we could say, no, we're going to go ahead and just go with what people want. And as also mentioned, and as I mentioned in the faculty, in the graduate council, they had voted down, many of the faculty members had voted down many of the RMEs, that they didn't approve it, that they didn't want those. Their students also were so confused and needed more time to understand what was happening to them and the impact that the reorganization would have on them. So for those who are all about it, and there are some who have approved and they really want to move forward with this, we certainly can create that divide as long as there's articulated structure to be approved. So that's still certainly a conversation that is a big conversation with board trustees. So also something to address is, as some of you may know, a 1% raise has been given to graduate, or is that in your report? Oh, I will cover it then. No, you got that. You got that. I will let that happen in your report. The rest of the PLAYS report will come via email as well as the other documents that you receive within the agenda that say submitted as written. Right, so since that's your report. And then for me, my report, sorry, I did not have a FAB meeting today. We just have the International Student Council do have some events coming up, and so that's really what we'll be looking at. But as a reminder, as if you have events coming up, make sure that you submit those as early as possible. And I also I've had a lot of emails and questions regarding travel funding. We, just so you know, and I apologize because it's like, I don't want to curse, but it's like sometimes a clusterfuck happens. Sometimes unfortunate things happen. But our accountant right now is out and has been out for a long-term leave on medical absence. And so this has been months, and it's foreseen like quite still maybe another month before they return. So we have another accountant who's brand new, and that's managing all the accounts for the student affairs, all the RSOs, undergraduate, graduate students. And so they have a lot on their plate, and they're trying to learn this because they're new, while the other more senior accountant is out in recovery. I'm not sure exactly what is wrong or what they're recovering from, but so I have told her that I will provide her some pacing, so that she can get cut off on some things. So that means there will be a delay in receiving certain things and things being processed. So bear with us. On top of that, we've been having some technical problems with our equipment, so printing out things, getting things done, just the basics. Nothing wants to print, like it's not connecting, and when you send me emails, I've been trying to get those, and so I've been just trying to collect a pile at home so that I can get that out of my own printer, my own paper, my own ink, because our equipment's just faulty. I even bought a brand new office printer. So that's something I finally decided to do. So this week that will be all finalized. Anything that's been requested will be put forward, but it has been a little bit of a drag because of these multiple circumstances. So I want to deeply apologize for that. That's gonna be my report. Yeah. Moving on to the good stuff. Moving on to Jordan.
When I talked to Dr. Wallace a couple weeks ago, she said that if you are supposed to get the 1% raise, it should have been on your November paycheck. If it was not on your November paycheck, it will be on your December paycheck with the back pay. If it is not on your December paycheck, you need to call HR. And if HR gives you the runaround, you need to call me, and I will call her. So.
I would also like to note that that this also, if you are in fellowship, making up one of my fellowship people in the room, that this also is a delay. So you will not see this on your November paycheck. And actually, I don't think fellows actually, because you have a fixed contract, and as a fellow, so I don't think this impacts you. Yeah. If that makes sense. And so this is only for our assistants in the room. So if you're on fellowship, you will not unfortunately see that 1% raise.
Another thing she talked about, so our application program to apply to SIU is currently called Hops and Radius, and we're changing to a company called Slate. And by changing that, we're going to save $60,000 in the next 2 years. And Dr. Wallace said that all of that money, her plan is to put it toward recruitment. Not only will it save money, but it's also a better program. And she said we're only paying 20% now, and the undergraduates are paying 80%, and she got them to do that because we're only about 20% of the population of SIU. Before we were paying $80,000, and the undergraduates were paying about $200,000. They wanted us to pay 35%, but she negotiated it down to 20%. Next year will be 6 months of Hops and Radius, and then 6 months of Slate. So the Hops and Radius contract has to run out So we won't start saving money until next year, but when we do start saving money, it'll be quite a bit. The last graduate council meeting was November 1st, and while the search for the chancellor and president are important issues right now, Provost Komaraju said that enrollment is still our #1 priority. So one of the really cool things that we're doing with recruitment, I think she said it was United Airlines, are bringing 120 students down from Chicago to come down here and check out our aviation program. They're also having another SIU day planned for April 26th. That's when the high school students come. We had a pretty good turnout this fall, so we're hoping for the same. Vice Chancellor Garvey says it's important that we maintain being a nationally ranked research institution, like our mission statement says. And he said what's most important is that we stay consistent. So sometimes we are ranked pretty high nationally, and sometimes we fall. It's better for recruitment efforts if we can have a consistent rank. He also said that we recently celebrated SIU's 100th patent, so that's pretty cool. And he also said that the school invests $900,000 every year on faculty who conduct research, and that while the faculty are doing their job and going above and beyond, the money is not really evening out. He said that the research expenditure versus the incoming money is kind of a problem right now, so that's something that we need to work on. And all the resolutions that we had to either approve or to deny RMEs were approved. So if you're interested in what those were, or you want to read them, let me know and I can get those to you.
All right, thank you so much. Moving right along, well ahead of schedule, and this is where it gets fun, is fee allocation board. I'm going to send you all of that in the follow-up email, because you're going to have the email that's going to have all the other things. And this will give me some time to catch up with our accountants. I have some truer numbers to provide you. And this email will be coming out later in the week. All the rest of the items are going to be submitted as written. And so that will also be a document that will be attached to that. And so we move right on down to executive director reports. Look at that, so ahead of schedule.
So for campus and community affairs, I met this week with the graduate assistant for the graduate school, along with Morris Library, to talk about some finals week programs that will hopefully be happening. So although it's crunch time for a lot of us, also I might be asking for a handful of volunteers to deliver some community bags that the grad school and Morris Library will be putting together. So if you need like an hour break and you want to make people happy by delivering some snacks, you might be getting an email from me. And I haven't been receiving any programming ideas from any of y'all, so if you think of literally anything, just send it to me. I have a handful of ideas that I've been discussing with other board members that I will hopefully be able to bring to you at our next general council meeting.
Rachel, if you'd like, what I can do too is, I know that you provided that little handout last time, is I'll put that as an attachment in the email that I'm sending out later on this week. So to give everybody a friendly reminder, as they go on to their Thanksgiving break, what are the wonderful, events and activities we might be able to put together for the spring? Perfect. I'm sure that's gonna be on everyone's mind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if you do choose to think of anything, understand that like collaborations can be as basic and widespread as possible. So if you want to see anything implemented on campus, we can try to make that happen through GPSC and working with other groups. So just throw it out there. Yeah.
I know one workshop that went really well was like being on the job market and how to revise your CV, and also like what does a job packet look like. And that process was one that was pretty successful, or at least that Jules Swan had really enjoyed. All right, so Executive Director of Council of Graduate Affairs, I don't think they are here. And then so what I'll do too is, as Clay is gone, I will be stepping into the meetings that he has this week. There is one meeting I will not be able to attend, so I'd like to ask and see if someone might be able to volunteer. On Thursday from 3 to 5 in Morris Library, they have the Diversity Council meeting. And Jules Hamad, who is not here today, also sits up on that, but we have 2 seats. And as you know, Clay will be absent, so if you're available on Thursday, November 15th from 3 to 5, if you'll let me know, since I cannot attend that, or I would have to be late to that, like 30 minutes late. It is in Morris Library. Anyone interested in diversity
I
count?
can go.
What's that?
Actually, Jordan, can you go?
If you don't mind, we'll let Jordan go. That way she can get a immediate report to Clay. All right, I'll give you that information. Okay, so our next, moving on to our executive director of board communications. I believe it is. I believe that is. I'm sorry. I guess that wasn't. Did Clay not confirm that?
No, we did not confirm that. Well, hello.
Hello.
Hi, my name's Lacey. I am super excited to represent you all as the Director of Communications. I have an undergraduate degree in public relations, and prior to starting my PhD, I did strategic communication work and event planning and stuff like that. One of the things that I think that I mentioned to Clay and the executive board that I think would be beneficial is using our Twitter account to connect with students across campus. A lot of times I don't think grad students know what we do in these meetings. There's a lot of information in these meetings that I think can be simplified through Twitter. So that's one of my goals, is to bring that back to life. And if you have any other suggestions on how to better communicate what we do in here with other grad students, I'm definitely open to that. Cool. Yeah.
Have we thought about like having some simple bulleted like minutes that can be released afterwards? Like, I mean, and that could be uploaded to the website, or it could be like shared. I think if it was shared widely, like it would be treated as spam.
Yeah.
But if it was up on the webpage, it would be accessible, and like it would be, it would be more transparent.
Absolutely, that's a really good idea.
I think that would be pretty easy. I know Clay, I mean, as I sit next to him and look at his very detailed notes for giving this meeting, I think that just taking that, and that has our agenda, that has detailed notes of all the talking points, and then he usually just writes down and jots down some of the things that come from before. It'd be very easy to edit that and then just put that as far as our additional meeting notes. But this will give us more exact, so people can watch that. But I think that's something we can certainly do, yeah. All right. Good of the order. Would you like to promote your event?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, go for it, man. And I'm also going to send this via email, just so you know. Everybody's going to get this flyer via email.
Thanks, I spent a lot of time on it. So I'm Vice President of Black Law Students Association, obviously at the law school, and we're bringing in Wesley Bell, who's the prosecutor in Ferguson, Missouri. Of course, Ferguson, Missouri is where all of the, I'll just call it stuff happened a little while ago. Yeah. So he ousted the 28-year veteran prosecutor in Ferguson. But that'll be on the 26th of November. There will be finger foods and a little meet and greet session afterwards. It's at 5 p.m.
Yep, that's going to be a Monday. So that's Monday, November 26th. So in case you, and that's 5 p.m. I will say they usually have pretty tasty finger foods. I went to the last one. I was pretty impressed by both the speaker and the treats that went along with that speaker. So kudos. I also wanted to invite everyone who's a graduate assistant, who is in need for a beer as we enter into Thanksgiving. But the Graduate Assistants United is having a happy hour tomorrow from 7 to 9 at the Cellar. And if you've been, we do give you lots of beer. So come by, grab beer. Also, this is a great opportunity to talk to us and some of the other executives on NGAU about some of the things that are happening on campus, because we do have some other, we go to those meetings, we have conversations. I'm actually having a conversation on Friday about another grievance that we have for a potential raise and things like that. So this is an opportunity. And also, we will be going in to negotiations as we renew our contract. So we're putting together a team for the spring to go into negotiations as we finalize our contract for the upcoming year. So that's a great opportunity to kind of express your interest in that, have beer, meet good people. I hope you can make it. Anyone else want to promote anything really quick? Yes.
I shared this onto the Facebook page, but just wanted to plug it because I came from an advisory board meeting earlier this afternoon. The Jackson County Public Health Department is hosting the 5K for World AIDS Day on December 1st. And they're just trying to get the word out to as many people as possible. They've been doing a lot of really good and solid work, especially amongst like both younger populations and aging populations who are affected by HIV/AIDS. They've gotten a couple of like really cool and massive federal grants that are really impressive for a smaller community to get. So this is the way that they're hoping to sort of keep that.
Do you know what the registration fees for that, the deadlines are? Maybe
I
around,
think it's
Is that the
34,
Santa?
35.
that's the Santa one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same one. You do not, I was not in charge of coming up with that. You do not have to run in swimwear on December 1st.
Okay.
That sounds horrible. But yeah,
But the information now is if you're not also, the word I'm looking for, where you like click, like you're like, I want to join on Facebook, the Graduate Professional Student Council page. So what's that called? Liking, joining, I don't know, whatever it's called, whatever that social media term is. I hope that if you, I suggest to all of you, because that's where we post things more immediately sometimes, like other events and things like that that are happening on campus. And so I suggest that you get onto our Facebook page, and that's where you can find announcements like that. And also that's a great opportunity too. If you send that, something like that, then we can also put it up on our Facebook page for you if you request. So I hope that if you are into 5Ks, that you sign up for that. All right, anyone else for conversations? What do you know? It's 8:35. Oh, well, 8:35. This has been a thrilling meeting. I now motion that we adjourn. Who would like to say aye? Yes. Meeting adjourned. Grab some pizza and some water on your way out.